Well, good morning to you. I'm Al Kyte, and we're out here in our garden in Moraga. We're doing a series of short videos on dimensions of beauty in a California native plant garden. And today's topic is beauty beyond the bloom. Now, we have bloom all year in our garden, but there's fewer blooms in November and December than any other time. And it's during those months that I tend to start looking at other dimensions of beauty in our plants. And of course, the three plants that we have that bloomed all year for us were the island bush poppy, the verbena, and the sundancer daisy. What I think it does is focus your attention on other dimensions of beauty in the plants that are sometimes overlooked in the beauty of the bloom. So what are these dimensions? Well, I think first of all is leaf color. And the deciduous plants in particular, the changing of leaves in the fall can be just wonderful. And when we get an early frost, early cold snap in our garden, the vine maples, for example, instead of the leaves turning from green to brown, turn from green to various shades of yellow and sometimes directly to red. The whole bush can be red. And the same thing is true with the Pacific dogwood, another plant that I've grown at times. The black oak gets a wonderful golden shade to the leaf. The mountain ash, it seems to be anything from various shades of yellow to red. So this is a striking form of beauty. But I think the evergreen plants that don't change color in the leaves also are very beautiful this time of year when you're not distracted by bloom. Sometimes you look and you'll see a group of several shrubs together. They're kind of growing together, and you can see the different sizes, shapes, and colors of the leaves together. It's like a mosaic of leaves that's just really beautiful, and so I'm kind of looking for that dimension. I think berries are another thing that are attractive this time of year. This is the first year in our garden that we've had red berries on our mountain ash, and I'm delighted in that because I'm used to seeing red berries on mountain ash in the Sierra, going along the streams in October, and to have it in my own yard is really special. The berries of the toyon that's kind of the crown jewel of our berry plants, and there's a number of things I really love about a toyon. First of all, it's the way the berries form on the bush, in these little individual clusters of red berries in amongst the green, just a great balance of those two colors. It's like red ornaments on a green tree or green bush. And so berries are special, and the toyons, we had the robins that come in, and a bird that comes in, and I only see it that time of year that accompanies the robins, are cedar waxwings. And they'll come in little black masks, beautiful little birds, and together they'll feed on the berries, kind of a frenzy, and then they leave. But even after they leave, there's usually a few berries left, and we have a few hermit thrush that'll hang out in the yard and just pick those berries off one by one until they're all gone. One year we had snow on the ground with those red berries, and so it's just so much to like about the toyon. I think in addition to leaves and berries, the bark is something we tend to overlook and we just start seeing in the absence of bloom. I think the texture of the bark, of the kind of pattern and platelets and things of a pine tree, such as the shore pine, and the more shaggy look to the beautiful shaggy look of the redwood tree. And of course, sometimes it's the shape of the bark. We have a mountain mahogany in our yard where the two main limbs grow around each other. But to me, the best feature, the one that I am drawn to more, is the reddish color of the madrone. And so even on the bleakest of winter days, I can go out in the front and see the red bark and the fresh green foliage of a Howard McMinn manzanita, and kind of lift the spirits. I think deciduous trees have a particular dimensions of beauty beyond just the change in leaf color. I intentionally plant deciduous trees with evergreens around them. So there's not these huge empty spots in the winter when a bunch of deciduous plants drop their leaves. So what it does when the deciduous plants drop their leaves, it opens up a whole different view, mostly just evergreens then, but it changes and gives us a different view of beauty. I think beauty is not just in what you see. I love the smell of sages and mints. And sometimes I'll go through the garden and I'll pick a leaf and just break it and smell and see if I can't find a fragrance that I didn't know before. And of course I love to go out in the yard on a crisp winter morning, sunny winter morning, and smell the air. It's cleaner then than ever. The sense of taste is important to me too. My two favorite tea beverages come from our own garden. The crushed young leaves of a yerba santa and the small leaves of a yerba buena. They're just wonderful tea beverages. So I think there's so many dimensions of beauty in a California native plant garden that we sometimes don't see. We get distracted a little by the bloom, I think. We always have these practical concerns in the garden. And for example, in September and October, the big practical concern is fire prevention. And I've learned to plant low, beautiful evergreen ground covers close to the house and build up height as I go away from the house. In November and December, I may be praying for rain, but I'm also preparing to hold soil, do things to hold the soil and slow down the runoff. So I'm preparing for storms. Now, how do you do that? Well, to me, the secret of beauty in doing something like that is using natural materials. So where we have a sloping landscape, a gently sloping landscape, if there's a lot of rain, that can take dirt right down into your pathways. How do I prevent that? I try to break up the slope. I use terracing. In other words, I'll get a kind of a rocky area, a sharp drop-off to flat ground, and then another sharp drop-off to the pathway. And wherever I can get that terracing, the flat soil, I think the water tends to sink in rather than run off. And I think that helps. I think where there's a steep slope, what we tend to do is build rock walls. And when you build a rock wall, you don't line up the joints one on top of another, you offset them. And this becomes part of my transition onto an area that doesn't have rock wall and maybe has less slope. What I do is just keep the offset to the rocks, but separate the rocks into kind of a natural rock offset area. And what that causes the water to do is keep being diverted different directions as it comes down to the stream bed. And then we serpentine that to slow down and keep the water in our garden even more. We'll use catch basins, sometimes just in front of the sidewalk. What I'll do is unobtrusively build a little stream bed that runs parallel to the sidewalk to catch as much water as I can. Now, some people have a steep bank behind their property, and they use another natural technique. And what they do is dig an area and plant bunches of tied together willow branches and bury them. I've never done that, but what I have done is bury rocks alongside my pathway. Because in the pathways, I don't want to see a constant line of rocks, but I do want to hold the soil of the planting bed, which is usually higher than the path. So what I do is try to build a little cluster of rocks, and then there's no rocks, and then there's another rock or two, and then maybe no rock. What do I do in the no rock areas? Because that's not going to retain soil. Well, what I do is build this little trench, put 6 to 8 inch river rocks in it, fill with somewhat smaller rocks, and finally with soil and then mulch on top. So it looks like there's no rocks there. It looks natural, but there are rocks there holding the soil. So these are just some of the ideas that we use in a garden to try to use natural materials, even in our practical jobs, to try to maintain beauty. And I think in the absence of bloom, probably the main benefit is it gives you an opportunity to broaden your perspective on beauty. I hope this has given you some ideas to work with, and thanks for being with us today.